All love, man. All love.
I know, mate. I know.
All love, man. All love.
I know. I know.
Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of SEO Fight Club. Let me say hello in the YouTube chat. We are doing a Q&A episode, so please ask questions. And until then, we will just talk about SEO topics until such point as we have enough questions to round out the show. Let me pop out the chat here so I'm watching it. Excellent. And so, maybe I'll start off by asking the audience. We don't often get a chance to query, everyone attending to see what they think and what they recommend. And I actually need some help because I'm currently diving into chat GPT, and I am trying to use it for basic fundamental SEO tasks. And I found all the common ones. There's 30 blog posts out there that basically cover all the easy, obvious ones. What I'm really looking for are kind of the maybe you haven't thought of this type of idea, because I'm trying to build my palette of tools with AI and trying to understand, what different dimensions can we tap into for SEO using this technology. So I've done the things like, getting long tail keywords and asking for entities. And I've even gotten into some of the more advanced things, like taking these lists and telling OpenAI to cluster them by topical relevance or cluster them by intent, and it's kind of remarkable the stuff that it's doing. And I've started asking about common mistakes and what are basic strategies for doing X, and so I'm wondering, is there more, because I feel like I'm having a massive amount of failure of imagination. And so I want to try to call on the group imagination to figure out where I'm dropping the ball. What do you think, Lee?
Well, yesterday I caught my wife giggling at her computer because she was having Chat GPT write code to generate random keywords for testing. Just little things like that, just things that we do on the daily. We try to figure this stuff out. Maybe we try them, or maybe we've got other ways of checking that. But it's some of those sort of tasks. When I'm looking at, I was doing some site building the other day, and I had a particular task that was repetitive, and I was like, I wonder if I can have a Windows script written that does this for me. Could I write it in a way, or could I have Chat GPT write it in a way that it would run and sort of automate this task for me? So there's some of those. As I look and I find myself doing something over and over, I'm wondering, if I can get Chat GPT to somehow make that easier or faster for me in a code form. So those are some of the things that just have immediately popped up on our end. But we're always looking for great ideas, like the question you're asking the group.
Yeah, because I'm really excited by the technology. I'm really disturbed by the technology. It's just really cool. Yeah, if you haven't started learning how to create prompts are how you query, you make requests of the AI to do some piece of work for you. So a prompt might be like, write 10 trend worthy blog titles for image SEO. That would be a prompt, and it would give you a list of the blog titles. And so there's like a million different things you can do with it, of which I've found like 30. And so I'm just like, looking at this going, I can't be running out of ideas already. And I know that there's like cool shit, and my imagination just isn't expanded enough to think the big thoughts that I need to be thinking. And so, I'm going to say this really quietly, but did you know you can make like a huge authoritative skyscraper article covering all the topics for a keyword for less than $1?
Right.
I mean, holy shit.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts in that regard. And so I don't think, like, people are thinking like it's the beginning of the end. And I don't think it's the beginning of the end. It's a new beginning. It's totally a new beginning. It's not going to end SEO for everyone. It is going to end SEO for some people. So let's just be clear about that. There are people that do need to worry a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the SEOs that don't have the analytical skills. They've been stubbornly white hat, extremely judgmental, and have only ever done what Google has told them to do. You're dead. Sorry, your days are numbered. You need to think now. You need to understand how things work. You need to have analytical skills. You need to be able to discover best practices. You need to be able to figure out if claims are true. You need to figure out how to optimize systems. Like all those things that SEO testers have been talking about. That's how you change with the times. That's how you adapt. So if you have those skills that let you adapt, then you're a kid in a candy store right now, because the whole world is going to be wiped clean of optimization experts for this new technology. And there's room for people with that skill set to get in and be the only one. And so if you don't have that critical thinking, you're going to be in trouble. And so I'm kind of looking at the pool of SEOs going, which ones were saying their 10 years of experience are the most important thing in SEO. And they quote, the Google regulations at you for everything you have to say. Those people are in a very difficult spot. And so, yeah, they're going to have to not only learn this new tech and change, they're going to have to confront those long-held beliefs. And so they're going to have to get past those to even change, to even say that GTP is worth learning. They're going to have to confront those thoughts. And so how does it change SEO in general? It's hard to tell, but this fluffy, artistic, flowery marketing writing that has been passed off as quality content isn't quality content in an AI context. It doesn't have the information payload to be useful to AI. And so rethinking your content strategy to have that information payload, that's kind of the new fundamental of optimization in an AI world.
I think maybe there's one beyond that. In my mastermind group, that we had a meeting on Friday, and we're talking about Chat GPT and AI and all that sort of stuff. And one of the things that I left there thinking is that part of the future of SEO is in manipulating the training sets. so that, I am the best plumber in Cleveland or whatever it happens to be. Those sort of things have to be clear. So how do you train the AI so that when people request the answers or the information, I'm the answer? Because
Yep.
ultimately that's kind of the direction it's moving in. So, that's where SEO could change. It's not just about matching what Google thinks, it's now matching training sets and manipulating training sets to, teach it what you want it to know as opposed to what's currently written.
Yeah, the whole notion of all my products are good and all of your products have flaws, and here's 15 different sources who have consensus on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a different type of game. It's a different type of optimization play, and it's going to have different types of negative SEO. Like, and do we even call it SEO anymore? Is it AIO?
Yes.
Um,
Here's oh, go ahead, continue.
and has anyone even thought about the possibility of negative AIO?
Yes,
Here
sir.
we are inventing new terms. It feels like day one.
Right. And the other one, beyond just, manipulating those data sets is, where are search engines going to die? Are they going to change? How are they going to change? When you're looking at, do you have, like in the original days of the search engines where you had, a dozen search engines out there, the old Alta Vista, and some of those days, is it now different models are going to be, it's Chat GPT and TED GPT and Madge GPT, whatever it happens to be, am I optimizing for different models now?
Well,
This world is changing fast right now, and it's kind of cool.
From my own personal usage habits, like I am down from like 100% Google usage to like 10% Google usage, and I'm 90% OpenAI. Just because I'm learning, I'm discovering, I'm finding total practicality and usefulness, and so I'm seeing my usage pattern swing hard. And as a test, I explained it and showed it to my 13-year-old, and it was like instantly Google was dead to him. It was old school. It's your dad's kind of search. And he was just instantly enthralled by the AI and couldn't wait to go tell all of his friends. So there's this ticking time bomb that when the whole TikTok generation figures this out and it goes mainstream, it's gonna swing hard. And so, I can't help but think that this is gonna have a lot of disruptive force. And if Bing is really fast at integrating and they do a really nice integration, that's going to make a very short timeline for Google to respond. And Google killed all the other search engines in a period of about 5 years. I think things are so accelerated now that if Bing came out fast with an integration, they might kill Google in a year if they can't respond in time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just looking at how fast they ramped up from the PR to their first million users, I mean, they smoked everybody historically. So I just can't help but feel that it's an accelerated curve. And so, yeah, I think, the search engine wars have reignited. Like, it's game on again. But we'll see, like, who knows? But it has that pre-Google feel, like, holy crap, it feels like there's an IPO, building somewhere. Where is it? Everybody figure out where it is and how to get in on it. It's like, that kind of feeling, like, everybody's said after the Google IPO, they all complained that, oh, I wasn't in a place to get in on it, or, I wish I would have invested in Apple. Well, it's like, start saving. Something's going to happen. Something's going to be worth investing in. Now, I don't know which entity that's going to ultimately end up being, because I can't read the future, but damn, it definitely feels like that, pre-Google IPO time. And so all the uncertainty, this whole weirdness of what does that mean for our futures and all of that stuff, it smacks to that same point in time in that era. Let's see, we have some questions here. How do you guys optimize pages with user-generated content that can't be modified or removed? Well, I like to refer to Matt Cutt's blog. I think he does a great job. You just put a non-paginating comment thread and you let it go off into infinity. And with each comment, it kind of repeats the keywords and the underlying source text and makes your page bigger and more skyscrapery and have more keyword mentions every time someone posts, whether they want to or not. Thank you, Matt Cutts. And there's a lot of other tactics. There are widgets and related content and things you can do that you could also post the topic that they're replying to with each reply on the user generated content or things of that nature. There's a number of edge cases that are technically acceptable, and even the Google people do on their own blogs. Let's see. Any thoughts on that, Lee?
Yeah, I think, that we've talked about optimization, being two levels. There's what you see on the page, and if you can't change what's on the page, because it's there, you can change under the page, as well, so that you can have content in the code. So, and there's a lot of ways. We've covered that on a lot of different Fight Club episodes. So
let's see. The next one is how does Google take HTML tags importance into consideration when processing the text? Do you think there is a multiplier, like one keyword is worth 5 keywords in a paragraph? I was always enthralled by the idea of conversion rates. Does 2 H3s equal, 1 H2? And it never really panned that way in the correlation math. So it doesn't quite equal that type of currency exchange. So I don't know that that's really the way the system works. I'd wager that it's probably not the way the system works. But you can make up for deficits. Like if you are in a case where you simply cannot add H2s to the page because of some business or technical limitation of your platform or whatnot, you can make up for it in other areas and still be competitive. But it's not like there's a direct exchange rate that, a heading is worth N mentions, plain mentions and sentences. Yeah, I've never seen any data to support that.
I'll fight you on this one. I think ultimately there's two pieces here that supports. There's some level of that. It may not be a 1-to-1, like a keyword in H1 is worth, a keyword in 2 H2s or something along those lines. But ultimately, we know two things to be true. We know that there are certain zones of the page that have a higher impact on your ranking than others. Keyword in your title tag, for example. We also know that everything on the page has to be converted to a math score. So whether it's implicit or not, keyword mentions in a paragraph tag, certain amount will overcome a keyword in an H1, etc. So there is some inherent math in there somewhere. And I spent a lot of time thinking about this. That's actually the reason why I got Cora back in 2018, was because Google started being much more volatile. The AI started processing things, updates were happening much faster, and I wanted to build that sort of model of, the data. Could I figure out that, one H1 is worth, 3 H2s or 2.8 H2s or something along those lines. So there's something ultimately in the algorithm that must equate those, or account for those, because we know all of those zones have different weights. But whether it's like I said, whether it's an implicit comparison, or whether it's taking all of those things in sort of what's the word I'm looking for, in a combined fashion, to come up with a page score, I don't know.
Yeah, the thing I find is that at low occurrence rates, it doesn't appear to behave that way. So when you do single variable testing, the numbers don't add up. And then at extreme levels, MC4 kicks in and removes those things from your score. So there's like a sweet spot where maybe it behaves like that, but it's really hard to differentiate from keyword density all by itself. And so you'd have a hard time proving the causality because of the other things it could possibly be. Could it be the entities? Could it be, some other thing? So, I think it's a stretch to have a lot of confidence that Google built it that way.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a currency exchange on Google's end. Now, there might be an accidental one that when you're in the sweet spot of these ranges, that it kind of works that way, because that's just how the data naturally behaves. But if you think Google intentionally built an exchange rate between headings and normal keyword mentions, I'm a little bit skeptical.
Yeah, I wouldn't optimize my page that way, but
but yeah, there is a notion of, better density seems to work better, and in hot zones of a page seems to work better. So why wouldn't it be that way? So I think it's natural. I certainly had those thoughts, and I tried testing them, and my tests didn't pan out. But
well, I mean, part of the hard part about testing something like that is inherently there are tags, so if you put a keyword in an H3 or an H6 to address Terry Powers, if you put a keyword in an H6, it is also in the HTML tag. It is also inside of the body tag. It is also, if Google is analyzing parts of a page for topics, it's also part of a topical cluster within a page. I mean, we can't know all of the things that one mention impacts, and all of those also have an impact on scoring and semantic relationships. So it's a tough one to test on a single variable, in a single variable way anyway.
yep. All right. We got a happy new year, and yes, happy new year, everyone. I hope you had a great holiday. Let's see. Next question. My keyword rich content is at the bottom of the page. Is there any sense to move it to the beginning of the HTML code and to reorder it visually using CSS? I think the benefits of that are rather small. I had a 17-year career of working with exact match footer links and getting powerful results from the footer. There are some measured benefits to having keyword density in the first 30 kilobytes of the raw source for simple indexing. But those behaviors may not be true in rendered indexing. And they're certainly not the strongest effects, so you can compensate for any disadvantage in other areas. And so, I'm again a little skeptical around that notion, and we tested a number of things. Like one of the things we tested was what happens if you put 1 million keywords on a page, and the first 200,000 ish got indexed within 48 hours. And so we know that you can get 200,000, unique words indexed in a very short amount of time. And I bet your page is much smaller than 200,000 words. So, you're probably fine anywhere. We also did testing on how tightly clustered and towards the top, and that testing did not pan out. Turns out that keywords throughout and long form content is such a strong signal that we cannot test in the field for closely clustered and towards the top. You just can't get any signal because the other one is so strong. So yeah, I'm not feeling like there's a good reason to do that type of thing. I don't think you need to. Lee?
I agree. For all the reasons you said. Once you get down to 200,000 words, that's a lot of, the way that we did it's a lot of bytes. It's going to be well within the realm of what, everybody except the extreme weirdos are writing about. So even your biggest skyscraper content is not going to hit those levels. You're fine.
I want a deeper understanding of how links work in SEO, theory, math, rule of anchors. What would you recommend to read? I don't have a recommendation on what to read because most of the stuff out there is fluff and non-tested. But I can tell you from my experience, I helped build a website to PageRank 8 back when PageRank was published. And when we got to the floor of PageRank 8, that was at 12.5 million backlinks. So PageRank 9 would be 125 million backlinks, and PageRank 10 would be 1.25 billion backlinks. But we could also go the other way. So PageRank 7 would be 125,000, and PageRank 6 would be 12,500. Got that wrong. PageRank 7 would be 1.25 million. PageRank 6 would be 125,000. And so you can kind of step back these powers of 10. So we know that the floor of 8 back in the day was 12.5 million. And so what you're going to learn is that when you get to about PageRank 5, it's nearly impossible to do manual link building and to go up the ladder anymore. You outgrow link building because every time you go up a tier in PageRank, you need to get 10 times as many links at half the cost. And so by the time you get to PageRank 5, every link you get ought to be damn near free. Otherwise, you can't continue to climb the ladder. So if you're paying $200 a link and you're only settling on high quality links, that's very unnatural, and that's a small websites game. When you start looking at websites that are PageRank 7, 8, 9 in size, theoretically, their average backlink is pretty much garbage. It resembles the average internet backlink. And so really, at the end of the day, you are dealing in a currency of average internet backlinks to get to those highest levels. And the quality of an average internet backlink is not these high quality backlink profiles. And so you're really standing out as different at those lower PageRank scales when you play that game. So with that, I think in terms of building links, you want to practice safe link building. You want to test sources of backlinks on test domains that you don't mind destroying. And when you ultimately do destroy one, you use it in tiered link building because it can still do work. And so, what people call bad links, you route through intermediate pages, and good links you can generally use on your money site to good effect. But you need to learn the skill set of being able to determine the two apart. If Clint were here, he would say that's a waste of time and that all links are good. But I still am too nervous to adopt such an aggressive strategy. So I like to test them, and I like to do tiered link building. And I think if you're doing paid services, you should never make a mess you can't clean up. And tiered link building is the best way to go. And even more so, I've stopped using backlinks. I don't compete on backlinks anymore. I compete on referring domains because it's a diversity factor. So if you think about PageRank is the scalar measurement of your authority, diversity of authority would be all the different places that you're drawing that PageRank from. And that's referring domains. So I'm even thinking about reclassifying referring domains as a diversity factor. And yeah, that's the 101 of links as I know it. Anything to add, Lee?
No, I mean, looking at, the question is, where do you go to learn about links? There's a lot of theory out there about link building. There's very little data, and there's even fewer tests. So I know that I've spent this weekend looking at sort of 2023. And one of the things that I'm constructing is my hit list of links tests, because that's one of the pieces that has to be shored up, fairly quickly in my own SEO, the stuff that I'm working on. So I wish there were a resource that you could go that was a quality resource, because I would be on it, but there isn't one that I found.
So we have an interesting question here. Are blogs that answer queries and make money via display ads, so those are like the banner ads, the visual ones, dead if Chat GPT rises in popularity? I don't know the impact of going to the source. I think what ends up happening is you need to play an information game where you're getting your brand into the AI responses. And when people are interested about what the AI said about your brand, then that probably translates into a visit to a website or a search on the brand. And so I think that's kind of the nature of how the AI information game turns into direct traffic. And so at that point, if you're drawing direct traffic, your ads can still perform and produce money. But what impact that has, I'm not sure. I don't know how that shakes up the industry, because I suck at predicting the future.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Lee?
Game theory is helpful here, because if you look, game theory talks about what the other players move given your move, and there's certain things that we cannot know at this particular point in time. So if I see Chat GPT and how fast it grew and how fast it's gone, towards mainstream, I've got, people that aren't SEOs, that aren't AI scientists, talking about, this is a cool thing. Have you played with the thing? If I'm a search engine, if I'm Google, I'm nervous, because the idea that this could replace the search engine is very real. So they have to make some moves. Bing has already started that. So we're going to try to integrate that in. Google's got their own AI type of, models and stuff like that. They're probably going to be forced to bring that and integrate that in. What that will do to the experience of a search engine and a user, we don't know. Will there be somebody else that comes out with a completely AI generated search engine? We don't know. Now, given those pieces, if I'm a blogger and all of a sudden, nobody's coming to my blog anymore because people are going, to the search engine and they're getting the featured snippet, or they're going to an AI that's answering based on, my data and somebody else's. I start to wonder, does content get published, or can you poison the content well with disinformation at scale that the AI learns? I mean, there's a lot of pieces that can change where's a reliable source of information about what blender I should buy. And so we can't know how each of the players are going to react and how the marketplace is going to react to that. I mean, it's moving fast. It's really, really cool to see, but you can't ignore that it's going somewhere. We just don't know where yet.
All right, let's see. Recently I have been making my articles telling Chat GPT to use all variations, LSI, and entities from Cora. That's cool. Maybe Ted, you should think about a formula to integrate with Cora. Yeah, I've been thinking nonstop about integration points, and so yeah, I'm there with you. I have to change with the times too. So yeah, that's a cool notion, and yeah, I'm already tinkering. Yeah, I think we have a concept for Cora 8 brewing. Let's see. I have a lifestyle site that has articles on food, tech, and other topics. I rank on the front page for many terms as my domain is somewhat strong. But is this a bad approach to take? I don't think so. I think fundamentally, for Google today, tomorrow, who knows? But Google today is a URL-based system. So you can have URLs about lots of different topics, and as long as you're properly tuning those URLs for those topics, they should perform, just as well as you would expect them to. Like if you went to Clint Butler and said, "Hey, my law firm sponsors a golf tournament. Can you help me rank for charitable golf tournament on this page?" I bet Clint would knock it out of the park, like no problem. And so there's no problem taking a URL and targeting a keyword that the rest of the site doesn't normally address. I think that's doable. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I think the what I heard in that question is, I'm ranking on page 1 for a lot of terms. Is that a problem? I'm like, no, that's not a problem. That's awesome. Keep doing what you're doing until it doesn't work anymore. You've got something that's working well. Keep doing it.
Yeah. What do you think, Clint?
It sounded like he's doing I would say like a HuffPost, right? So, talking about the news and lifestyle and this and that and autos. And there's plenty of examples of those sites running successfully. The niche down sites that people tell you should be running is really because if you niche down, it's just easier to do that one thing. And you don't have to think about populating your lifestyle section and your news section and your whatever section. You're only writing about one topic, so it's easier to manage from a management perspective. That's the only reason that I see is sticking to one topic. But if you want to run a multi-topic lifestyle type website, then go for it.
Yep, I agree. Let's see. All right. So thoughts on people using redirect chains on cloud pages. Well, I'm not a big fan of redirects because they count as a layer of linking. You're diminishing authority by having multiple layers of them. Why diminish the authority that passes between pages by setting up weird chains of redirects? So anything more than one feels very wasteful to me just from the math of the system. technically it works, like Google says they have a limit, but they actually honor much more than that limit. It, it all technically works, but the question you end up having to ask yourself is, even though it technically works, is it worth doing? And so, yeah, I think the redirect chain part of that, I'm looking at it and going, why is that even needed? What do you think, Clint?
It's a Daryl Osborne method that he's teaching right now. I think Lee kind of hit on it when he talked at Rockstars with the canonical chains. It's the same thing, right? The only issue that I have with the method it is teaching is, and before you set up the redirects, you got to get that URL indexed. Google crawls it, Google indexes the content on it, and then ranks or not, it's up to you. But and then you set the meta refresh redirects. That's how he's doing it, and most people are teaching it now. Versus just doing it with canonicals like Lee's doing, or doing it with the significant link link chain that I taught at Rockstars. I mean, those are much less work than going back and indexing and then setting up the meta refreshes and all that stuff. So plus you have zones where you can start throwing GSA at all of those clouds and all that stuff, which you can do with the redirects too. It's just a way. Testing it either way, any way you do it, Lee's way, the way it was significant links or with redirects, you pretty much have the same result. It helps you rank. So just choose the one that's easiest is the way I go with that.
Yeah, I haven't done a lot of the testing comparing the different methods there. It's one of the things that's on my radar. But if there's not a significant gain, then why do it? You go back to the minimum viable SEO sort of things. If you can accomplish it without the redirects, what's the magic? What's the supposed gain that you get from doing it as a redirect instead of as a just a straight link, Clint style or whatever? You have to test it to know. So there's a lot of times there's these really cool things that you can do that there's really no benefit to doing. It just seems like you're part of the cool kids club. And I don't know whether Daryl's method is or is not one of those, but because I haven't tested it, but that's what I'd say, test it.
What are your thoughts on AI detection from Google? Detecting patterns and generated from AI is not too difficult. Well, right now, Google still hasn't detected lorem ipsum tuned content and random gibberish, and they haven't figured out, white text on a white background, because that still ranks, and they haven't figured out egregious cloaking between, how to train a puppy egregiously cloaking to casino gambling. They haven't even figured out people cloaking Bing search results in Google searches. And so if they can't do the easy shit, then why should we believe at all that they can elegantly or authoritatively handle the harder stuff? I mean, why would we think that? So I'm still waiting for some sign that one of the issues I've mentioned, and most of those have been around for 5 or 10 years now, why haven't any of them been solved? Like, shouldn't any of them have been solved by now? And so, yeah, I have a hard time thinking that Google's gonna figure out that the second point you made in paragraph 4 came from an AI, that doesn't seem cost effective on Google's end for 200 trillion pages. I think they have bigger things to worry about today. Now, universities and high schools, they probably care a lot more. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, it was last week. Honey used ChatGPT to construct a 60-page website with no alterations. We're going to rank it we've got a couple of those out there, and just, if they die, we'll know that Google's detecting something. But my expectation is that they're going to rank for quite some time.
Yeah, and I recommend that everybody does that on some hobby, low important site. Create some canaries in the coal mine. Create some obvious AI pages that even have direct like AI error responses that say this couldn't be anything but AI. And rank those pages and wait for the algorithm to squash them. And you'll know it's like, oh, I need to check because my canaries died today. And so, yeah, totally set up some canaries in the coal mine testing. Any thoughts, Clint?
Tons. First, if you look at all the AI detectors out there, you copy something from ChatGPT, you copy something from OpenAI, and then you run all these detectors, you drop it in, and it says, oh, it's AI generated content. I mean, that's kind of a biased way of saying that this testing tool works. And then if you go through a process, like if you watch my content optimization process, you're running through multiple services. Like I use currently Phrase, ClearScope to InLinks. I'm using multiple services to add related entities, and I'm doing the LSI stuff and TF, IDF and all of that. So my content is all 100% handwritten, and then I optimize it. I put in one of those tools and it tells me that my content is 75 to 95% AI generated content. Why? Because I'm really stupid high on point with my topic, and it's narrowed right down, and it looks like a robot read it, right? That's what those testing tools say. Oh, it's so good that clearly a robot had to read it. So your content is so awesome that a dumb human couldn't possibly have written this stuff. So those testing tools are flawed. Two, to Ted's point, I mean, Google didn't fix the lorem ipsum, so why are they going to invest money in chasing after AI content with flawed testing methodologies and then do it over a couple trillion web pages? They're not going to do that. It just doesn't make any financial sense whatsoever. What I think they're waiting for is for the OpenAI people or for themselves to create a mechanical key. And then when you're using the APIs from these services, a mechanical marker will be put into that API of that content that it generates. And if you're part of the crowd that likes making mass generated sites, and you're part of the crowd that's like, I'm just going to make 500 pages and throw them in there with OpenAI, and you're going to use some tool that uses that API and to generate your websites, and you're going to have that marker in there, and Google's going to be like, there it is, and then just kill your stuff. That's how I think that they'll go after the AI thing. Instead of having this concerted effort, they just look for the marker. If the marker's there, boom, we got you. If it's not there, then it's real content, right?
Yeah. I was thinking about how are they going to fingerprint content. So let's say I ask Chat GPT to list the letters of the English alphabet.
Yeah.
And so how are they going to fingerprint that answer?
They won't be able to do it if you're doing it in the interface, right? So you go ask that question, then you copy the answer and put it down there. Let's say if at a minimum, they might be able to do what we used to be doing with articles to make them unique. And that's using Cyrillic characters instead of the English characters. And that was tricking the tools to say that was unique content. I mean, they might do something like that, but that's easily fixed with a clean copy paste into a general text editor.
Yeah.
Right? So
my theory on what they might do to fingerprint is they would take the checksums of the elements of whatever you're constructing, and they would change the sort order based on the checksums in a way that formed a recognizable fingerprint. So if you took the original sort order of what they gave you as examples, that there could be a fingerprint that's, you know, below the data you're seeing. And then but you know, the way you quash the fingerprint is you sort your data.
Yeah.
So if you get the results back, you know, in a list from ChatGPT, and it's just, you know, what are the months of the year, and they're in a funky order, you sort them, and boom, fingerprints gone. Now they're alphabetical order.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, it's like, what are they going to do to apply a fingerprint? You know, they're going to maybe pick, you know, obscure words and create a fingerprint pattern based on those types of words being used, or introduce recognizable flaws, or who knows, but
All of
eventually
those
we'll figure it.
Yeah, all of those are easily defeated though, because all of
Yeah.
those are mathematical relationships between the terms. So if I take Chat GPT and I run it through any of Clint's processes, it's going to change the mathematical relationships. Problem
erase it.
solved. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
So that's
like,
where the mechanical key is going to have to come in. It's going to be through the API. They're going to push out some code that gets published when you use a tool to publish whatever the API output is. It's going to also publish that mechanical key behind it, right? So kind of like a hidden div, for lack of a better term, and there's going to be that mechanical key in there. And it's going to be easily defeatable if you're using ChatGPT and copy pasting. Copy paste is going to essentially erase any markers that are in there anyway. So, yeah, I think the mechanical key is probably the best way to go until they, I don't know, just make up a whole new font for ChatGPT that only Google's aware of with the actual font change. Maybe that would be it.
That's a high tech, you know, using copy paste to defeat the detector is very high tech. It's right up there with Ted Sun's method for defeating Chat GPT detection. You know, what did he say that he was going to do?
Oh, yeah, I said you can't use this because the tools will narc on you. And he was like, what do you mean? I'll just rewrite it in my own words. It still saves me a ton of time.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I was going through college, they were using those plagiarism things. It's no different than what Grammarly is using, and yeah, you can defeat those by just changing the wording around. So,
let's see. When you say you're using competing on referring domains, would subdomains do the trick too? I wouldn't count on it. I mean, kinda, yeah, kinda no, but it's kind of the weakest way to do it. You want actual different domains. So you're putting a lot of eggs in a basket when you do that, and it's kind of hard to get the behaviors out of Google that you want with subdomains. So I'd say that's shaky ground. My chiropractor asked me if I heard about this Chat GPT thing. Yeah, it's starting to get out there. Do you think Google can determine the main content area of a page? Yes. Screen readers for the blind have been very effective at doing that for a decade now. They key in on the first H1 heading, and they call that the start of the main content. And that's why in the United States, when you have multiple H1s, they can start an accessibility lawsuit in some cases against you. So can they do it? Yes, it's not even hard. Lee, what Cora strategy would you use in various scenarios? For example, when would you use maximum versus average? Don't use average. Don't.
Well, I don't use either of those particular strategies in it because I utilize Cora data a little bit differently. But I think it depends on, go back to the way that Ted thinks about it. You know, you don't want to go towards the average. You want to live by the mantra, if they can do it, why can't I? So if somebody can have, 2,817 words, why can't you? If somebody can have 54 H2s, why can't you? You can do that. I tend to be a little lazier than that. So, Ted, you want to add anything to that? Because those are your strategies, man.
Yeah, the deficit strategies are how you you tell Cora what advice you want to get back. And so the way you read it is for any factor we measure, I want the maximum factor measurement from my chosen competitors or the page one average or the shared average. Whichever one of those things is largest becomes the tuning goal for the factor. When you switch it to the average, however, you're gonna derank your pages. That is, just systematic detuning, because you want to be above average, right? You don't want to target the average. That'll put you square on page 2. So yeah, use the maximum, you'll get your best results. The thing that Clint said about the redirect linking, somebody saying that's Jimmy's, not Daryl's, and if that's true, make note of that. I don't know who invented what when. I do know in our industry, lots of people invent the same things over and over again.
Yeah, I use invent air quotes tightly. I mean, that's kind of dickish if Daryl didn't say that Jimmy showed him that. So, I mean, if you do that, you're a piece of shit, in my opinion, but it happens a lot.
Yep. A lot of
So,
people.
might be.
Oh, go ahead, Ted.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I
was
talk a
going to say, a
lot.
lot of people have been trying to take credit for my discovery of the keyword. So, it's a sensitive topic around here.
Yeah. So my apologies if it's Jimmy's invention. I just don't know. So if you made a website about 6 months ago, you didn't really build backlinks, do you think it can still target big competing keywords? Well, here's the thing. If you neglect factor diversity, the tactics you're using will stop working. All right. It's the most common story in SEO. Every SEO hits it. You start tuning your page, you get to 75. You start tuning it some more, you get to 50. You do it some more, you get to 25. You tune it a whole bunch, you're still at 25. You go nuts tuning it, 25. And what's happened there, what we think has happened there, is you've triggered MC4. And MC4 says if you exploit a minority of factors, that the algorithm should ignore those factors just for your page. And so as you do the tuning you're doing, the algorithm saying, I see what you did there. I see what you did there. You're doing a lot of the same things over and over again to the page. I'm just going to stop letting those affect your ranking score. Now, it turns out people start thinking that's a penalty, especially with off-page. They do it with links. I add some links. I go up. I add a bunch more. I go up a bunch more. I'm the best SEO on earth. I add 50,000 links and boom, my website's gone. But it's the same thing. You just went extreme and MC4 said you get no score for that thing now. And people say, oh, I got a penalty or I'm over-optimized and I need to disavow backlinks and do link removal requests. But really, it's probably not any of those things. And what you should try first is diversifying your ranking signals. Because if you get the right diversity in the right places, odds are MC4 will let go of that demotion and you'll get credit for the thing that you aggressively tuned. So you got to think about all the things you're not doing and start expanding into those areas. And so that's what I teach now. And we've had a lot of good experiences of getting these MC4 type demotions to let go. And so you can resume with on page and you can resume with off page. And the other thing is that it was never about the number. When people in Signals Lab say you made 50,000 links, that was stupid. 50,000 links is a bad thing to do. Well, explain all the websites that have more than 50,000 links. It was never about the number. It was always about how you did it. And the same thing is true with on page. Oh, you can't add 1,000 exact matches to your page. That, Google's too smart for that. Well, explain all of the page one results that have 1,000 exact matches on them. If you can't explain those, then your theory's crap. So, just keep in mind that you need to diversify. Lee?
Yeah, I agree with 100% of that. I don't think, one of the things that I've learned over and over again, because I was a slow learner on this shit, is that almost everything that you do in SEO, if you make a mistake, it's fixable. So if you didn't build links, go build them. If your content wasn't good enough, revise your content. If your internal link strategy sucks, change your internal link strategy. Whatever it is, you can go back and fix it and compete with, whoever for whatever term you want. So.
All right, let's see.
He's got a follow on with that. And I kind of, when I was reading it, I kind of thought that's what he meant, but essentially it's 6-month website. He put it up and then walked away, which essentially it's still a new website, right? And he didn't build backlinks. Can he still go after big keywords with it? And
yeah.
So I would say, yeah, you can, taking into account all the stuff that Ted said.
Let's see. I'm just over AI content. I've used it extensively, and I just don't think that's great unless you spend time editing it up. I'm working on my own writing and
loving it.
Oh, and loving it. Yeah, original creative works still have value. AI needs original content to work from, and if everybody does AI content and nobody does original work, then AI stagnates. So yeah, you can't assume that the original works have no value. But the question becomes, can the AI help you with the original works? Like maybe you need ideas for an argument between a lawyer and a banker, about who owns this dog that was left over in an inheritance. That's a tricky thing to write. I need some ideas to make that fun. Maybe an AI can give you some ideas on directions that dialogue could go. But I don't know the full extent, because like I was saying at the beginning, I have such a failure of imagination. But I think you're right. If you ask a vanilla question of the AI and try to use the vanilla answer, the results are pretty crappy. But I think best practices will emerge that will change that a lot. What do you think, Lee?
I agree with you. I mean, I think it all is, and one of the things that I have to be careful of here is when people say, I'm not impressed with the results, my content is better. I'm like, all right, so what's the metric? Are you talking about it from, a personal subjective thing? Are you talking about it from an algorithmic, will it rank better? Because those are two very different things. And oftentimes the people that think their content is better fail to understand how lorem ipsum could rank. Because it's crap content. So, what do you mean by better? And I agree. A lot of times the boilerplate that comes out with a generic question, what is SEO? SEO is the practice of blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, okay. And that's going to be just very, very common and uninspiring, accurate largely, but uninspiring. So,
but did you know you can instruct the AI to write the answer as a comedian?
Mm-hmm.
You could tell the AI to write the answer as if they were The Rock, and you can put voices into the way it replies. And if you haven't played with that feature set, you're missing a lot of the capability of the technology.
Also, just on a related, I just saw some people are posting an article where Microsoft is in talks to buy 49% of OpenAI.
Yeah, I might need to invest in Microsoft again.
They already licensed to use OpenAI's technology in their products. And I think buying it makes sense with the expansion of the GPT chat or chat GPT, right? So now they can go all in on the integration with Word, is which I'm looking forward to. Business growth ready. Clint said crap on crap. First off, the marker that I'm talking about is not an AI marker for the trainers. It's actual mechanical marker that, and I didn't come up with the idea. It's one of the developers of the chat GPT algorithm and the data sets. He's the one who said he wants to create a mechanical marker for the APIs to identify content because it's virtually impossible to accurately identify AI content. So business growth ready is crap on crap. Take that, sucker.
Yeah.
Ted was nice and just overlooked that, but I don't. My moral standards are not that high.
See, do you guys recommend to always pick the top 3 competitors on Cora, or to pick anyone from the top 10 or even 100 that made relevant content? That distinction is basically a distinction of short-term versus long-term goals, and neither one is right or wrong. They're just different personal choices. Like, you can choose to rank or to compare yourself to closely related sites that rank closer to you, and that's a short-term goal. That'll get you a short-term small gain. Or you could choose to go for the gold and figure out what it's going to take to rank top 3. And so usually I want to start by going for the gold, because if I can get there quickly and aggressively, if you go for the moonshot, you tend to do better work than the short-term result. So I often recommend and generally go for the top 3 because they're in my spot. But it's really up to you. Sometimes the aggressiveness of going for the top 3 is like a lot of work and can trigger a Google dance and can cause a lot of stress. And so small incremental changes oftentimes make better money for agencies who want to prolong the SEO engagement over time and get better billings out of it. So taking small, safe bites might be your best money in agency SEO. So you got to kind of weigh the workflow impacts of, like, doing quick, aggressive SEO versus doing, agency client SEO. What do you think, Clint?
I kind of differ in that. Like, the number one part of Cora that I miss is the band tab, especially for local, like comparing your local business website to Home Advisor and Angie's List. The best of tape pages makes sense, but comparing it to Better Business Bureau or a Yelp that is nothing but a bunch of listings and stuff. And that's when you get those weird recommendations to add 500 pictures to your website and stuff like that. But I know your argument for why I should include them. I totally disagree with it, and I want the ability to not include them, right? So when I pick the top 3, it's blocked. It says ban is blocked.
Yeah, but you don't need ban to exclude them from the recommendations. Just simply not choosing them as a competitor keeps them out of the recommendations.
Right. But it's okay. So in regards to picking them out, what I do in local is I pick other local sites. So if the top 3 is a local site and then a Yelp and an Angie's List, for example, I'll uncheck the Yelp and the Angie's List and then go pick the next 2 top ranking local sites, real local sites. If it's information keyword, like the example that Not Curse gave, he's got one result that has a YouTube video in there. I would intentionally go look at that YouTube video and see if the description is all built out. If the description's not all built out, and there's nothing in there optimizing that description for that YouTube video, then I uncheck that. Because I mean, it's YouTube. They're ranking off of their authority, right? So you can beat those kind of pages pretty easily.
And as you can see, there are multiple ways to do SEO. So
Yep.
it's not a right or wrong. It's what makes sense to what you're doing and why. So.
And even using, I mean, we're using the same tools. Ted's got Cora, I got Cora, Lee's got Cora. We both, all three of us look at that data in different ways. We all turn on different settings. We have different biases towards which way is the best way, right? So I think that's one of the values behind Cora, is because, yeah, it's the features and stuff are driven largely by Ted and what he thinks are important, but at the end of the day, he's given us enough that we can implement our own stuff and not be reliant on what he wants.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
I mean, looking at it, I have a third option here. You know, Ted looks at, sort of the top three. Clint looks at a curated list of competitors, trying to pick that out. I'm pissed off that Cora only shows 100. I would love it if the Google SERP was back at 1,000 and Cora would extract all 1,000, because that gives a clearer picture. For me, and the way that I look at stuff, the more data is better, because it tends to give you stronger signals, stronger trends, stronger everything than just looking at, a subset like page one, or these couple, or top three or whatever. So and all of these methods, like Clint said, all of them work. They're just different ways of looking and evaluating its data, which is the beauty of Cora, is that you have all the data and you can look at it any way you want.
Yep. It's like that question you had in there earlier. I don't know if you answered it, but when would you move from maximum to average, right?
I said I don't use either of those.
Yeah. I mean, it's figure out what's working for you in your niche, and if optimizing for average is working, then why go balls out with maximum, right? But if you're in a hard niche, then yeah, you got to go all out to start competing. So it's play with the settings, figure out which one you like the best and which one results in the least amount of work for the maximum amount of benefit.
And like Clint said, I give you the controls you need to prove me wrong. So feel free. Won't be the first time. All right. One last question and then we'll wrap. I have a store and Google de-indexed a huge number of pages. Is this because the duplicate content? As you know, the page can have variants. It's hard to answer a question like that without doing an audit. My general inclination is usually that's not the cause. It can be in some cases, but it's often not. Within the past month, I've had websites that I've made no changes to drop in rankings from number 1 to number 80, stay there for 2 weeks, and then rebound to number 1. So it kind of feels like Google is progressively going through the index and rescoring everything. So it might just be your turn to get rescored. I'd wait a couple weeks and see where things land. Beyond that, you might want to have an audit for technical SEO problems. Do you have a duplicate content issue that's manifesting in Search Console? Is it also manifesting in the index when you search for examples of your products? Do you get weird URLs with faceted navigation options in the URLs? Those things would be the kinds of clues. Does Search Console say you have 1 million pages when you only have 116? Those are clues to those types of issues. So yeah, try, and you can also, well, if it's a Shopify store, you can't, but if it's like, just about any other platform, you can look at the web logs and you can see where Googlebot is going. And is Googlebot, running into a loop where it's adding and removing from cart and then saying, I'll see you this time next week. Sorry, I only got through the socks category. You can actually look at what Googlebot is doing on the web server and see what they're running into. Any thoughts?
I would look at interlinking. If that's not done right, it's kind of think about it from your own perspective. If you don't care enough about that page to link to it from your other pages, why should Google index it? And then I also look at links to the pages that got the index. So if they were ranking fine and then all of a sudden they just disappeared, it probably has no backlinks or no, the internal linking is not good. And that's an easy fix.
So there's a few ideas for you. So thank you, everyone. We will see you same